Down in the Dugout, powered by Scout Scoops.
Tonight, we're really lucky and really pleased to have Nick Olczyk with us. You'll know him from NBC Sports. You'll also know him from, if you follow the ECHL at all, he is the lead broadcaster for the Indy Fuel. So welcome aboard, Nick. Happy to have you, sir.
Great to be with you, Bob, Chris, Scott, Chase, Logan. We got quite the team today. Great to be with you guys. Thanks a lot for having me.
Very impressive. Very impressive. You got all our names. Bob can't even get all our names.
That is true.
It's really a choice, Nick. Don't let him. I don't like to even talk to most of these guys. So, yeah.
I mean, Chris is usually Scott.
That is true.
I know Ouija.
These are conscious decisions. But anyways, welcome everybody. We're happy to have everybody here who's going to end up listening to us, watching us on YouTube or on Twitch, and of course our podcast. So thank you very much for joining us. Should have a heck of a show tonight. A lot of fun's about to be happening. A couple things happened today. We watched the official 4K trailer for MLB The Show. That dropped, right? That was exciting, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. It was.
Okay. All right. So, well, talk to me about that. I want to hear about that. What excited you guys about it?
I think Logan is about ready to burst, so let him go first.
Okay. We can't have that. Yeah.
Can we just have the conversation real quick? We finally got him. Roberto Clemente in MLB The Show 21. I, as the broadcast pirate fan here, I keep everyone in check. Oh, my God. I have never been more excited for a video game in my entire life. I posted about it today on Twitter, but and I also posted about it on scoutscoops.net. This Roberto being in the game is bigger than the game. This is one of those legend gets that is, it transcends MLB The Show. It transcends baseball. Roberto is so massive for the Latino community. He's for all intents and purposes, the Latino Jackie Robinson. Like he's the legend. And, you know, obviously as a Pirate fan, just what he means to that organization. He is the Pirates Babe Ruth. He's the Pirates Mickey Mantle. Like he is a step above everyone else in that organization's history. So being able to play with him as a Pirate fan, he's never going to leave my lineup. Like no chance he ever leaves my DD team. So
that's awesome. And a great way to talk about the impact of him for baseball fans, obviously, who have been around a while. They obviously understand the impact that Roberto had. Not only, and you talked about it, not only he's the face of the franchise for the Pirates, but if you really understand his impact over the whole generation after generation of Major League Baseball, the fan base. So absolutely amazing inclusion by Sony to get Roberto in there. It's been a long time coming, and I think everyone's excited. So we can't. What is it? March 20th or April 20th? That's launch date, right?
Yeah.
It can't get here. Can't get here soon enough. So, anything else, Chris? What else? What else excited you about this?
It just looked great. I think
Yeah.
it looked really smooth. So yeah, I mean that was nice to see, just the textures and stuff. Faces look amazing. It's definitely something to be excited about. I'm ready for it.
Right. Absolutely.
I'm at the point where I'm starting to count down the days. So
right. I would agree. Now, Nick, someone has told me that you're kind of a video game fan. Is that true?
Yeah, to say the least, I am. With the two jobs that you so eloquently had said that I do, I don't have a lot of time,
Right.
but the time that I do have, it's certainly spent on a PlayStation or an Xbox. Video games have been a big part of my life, really. And, you know, growing up playing hockey, a lot of the weekends were spent traveling at rinks, and during the week was school and practice. But anytime I could, it was some sort of video game. And it was often, you know, NHL or FIFA or MLB. And I mean, those were the games that I like to think of it as that's where I got my start in broadcasting. And I know a lot of other people can relate to this, but, you know, growing up, I didn't know if I enjoyed video games because I enjoyed gaming, or if because I enjoyed broadcasting and talking and doing the play-by-play and color as I played. And I used to actually have my gaming set up down in the basement, and my brother, his room was probably, 20 feet away. And yeah, I got busy during the day. So then, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. comes around. I want to go play some video games. So then I would go and I'd broadcast as I would play it, and I would score a goal and I'd get really excited, and my brother would just stick his head out of the room and just go to bed, and it's because I'm getting excited and whatnot. So I'm a big video game fan. I play, mainly NHL, MLB, FIFA. Those are kind of my main games, sports games, and obviously Call of Duty. I'm trying to get into the more role-playing games and whatnot, but just for me, I think the competitive spirit that I have has me driven more towards sports games. But yes, absolutely avid video game player without a doubt.
Now, have you had the chance to get your hands on a PS5 or an Xbox Series X yet?
I was extremely lucky. I was hunting for it, the PlayStation 5, and that's so actually just to fill you guys in, I got my start in MLB The Show back in MLB The Show 19. So I haven't been an MLB The Show lifer. And just to take you back a little bit more, I played baseball in the summers growing up. Obviously, grew up mainly playing hockey, but when you're at a young age, it's really important to play as many sports as you possibly can to improve those motor skills and just kind of be surrounded around different people and do something different year round. I wasn't much of a baseball player. I wasn't overly great at it. I didn't love the heat. When I played, when I was a lot younger, I was often in the outfield, and it was when kids couldn't hit it to the outfield. So I'm just out there picking grass, and it was miserable for me. And I stopped playing probably when I was 7, 8, or 9. And then my freshman year of college, which was 3 years ago now, I was going to Colorado College, playing Division I hockey there. In the springtime, when the season was over, the hockey team they joined an intramural softball league, usually 30 guys on the team. So you just split it up, upperclassmen, lowerclassmen, just intramural softball. And that intramural softball league that we played in my freshman year made me fall in love with baseball, made me fall in love with softball. And I had never really been into it before, other than when I was younger, and I kind of came away with a bad taste in my mouth when I was 9 years old. I mean, it's a long time ago, but playing in that intramural softball league, I think, really propelled me and said, hey, this is kind of fun. And then it's kind of similar to how I got my start in the love of soccer, playing FIFA 13, where I just started playing the game, and then you fall in love with the game and certain players and teams. And then all of a sudden you find yourself following it on TV and social media. So I think that playing intramural softball really sparked my love of baseball. And because I've been an Xbox gamer my whole life. And once I played in that intramural softball league, I go, okay, I want to play the show. So I'm going on the Microsoft website, right? Xbox Game Store. I'm like, MLB The Show. I'm like, it's not there. I'm like, what do I do? And it's only on PlayStation. So what did I do? I went out and I forked over $200 or $300 on a PlayStation 4, and I started playing the game. And people are like, guys that I'm friends with, they're like, you're crazy. You're forking over that much money just to play one game. And it was the best decision that I made, and played a ton of MLB 20 and plan on just playing hours of 21. So yes, but to get to the root of your question, yes, I was lucky to land a PlayStation 5. I got it from Meijer. Now, keep in mind, I have never stepped foot in a Meijer grocery store ever. And they did a surprise drop of PlayStations at like 3:30 in the morning. Don't ask what I was doing up at 3:30 a.m. I couldn't tell you. I'm a night owl. But and it just all of a sudden it says we're going for a drop, and somehow I got one and then went and picked it up the next day, and never been looking back since. So it's pretty amazing. It's the next gen consoles, if you can get your hands on them. They're pretty great.
For those of you who don't know, who don't know what Meijer is, I'm not even sure if Meijer is anywhere else other than Michigan, Indiana, and Illinois.
Just the Midwest.
Okay, just the Midwest.
To my knowledge, it's just the Midwest. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I was going to say, are you torn now with it being cross? You can go. It's on Xbox now. Are you thinking of going back, or are you sticking with the PlayStation?
Yeah, since I have been pretty much primarily PlayStation since I first got the show in 19, and I've been playing video games since I was 9 or 10, and it's always been Xbox 360, Xbox One, Xbox One X. And actually, I was also able to, I think it was from Best Buy or Target, secure an Xbox Series X as well. So I'm one of the very lucky few, and I count my lucky stars every day that I'm able to wake up and see them in perfect synchronicity sitting next to each other. But to answer your question, no, I'm gonna stay with it on the PlayStation. I already got it pre-ordered. And I ended up just going with the standard version because I don't play much online. Diamond Dynasty, it's not really for me. Same with FIFA or NHL. I like offline franchise mode, control the rosters as much as I can, and I'm sure we'll delve into it. But I have a serious case of rosteritis, and like I've said, I'm sure we could talk about that. But I like to keep things as real and as close to reality as possible. But no, I will not be experiencing it on Xbox Series X. I just think it's a Sony studio, obviously San Diego studios, and I think that there could be some room there maybe for some trouble in the first little while trying to get things acclimated to the Xbox. But I think they're going to do a great job with it. But I think overarching theme, the fact that we can have more people playing this game is the best thing about all of it.
Yeah, we all agree with that.
Absolutely. That's true. We brought that up before in the past, Nick. Just talk about, for those of us who have played it on the PlayStation, whether it be the 4 or the 3, we understand what an amazing series it is and how such an awesome job it does of mimicking the sport in real life. And sadly, it was only for Sony players. And now we've talked about it at length now about how awesome it is for Xbox users to finally get their hands on this game and have a real baseball game to enjoy on their own system. Because you're right, to drop $400 or $600 on a system, for one game, it's a little pricey. Most people don't want to take that step. So, yeah. So, Nick, did you see the trailer today?
I did. I woke up right before I went to the gym. I follow a couple of you guys, and I follow the MLB The Show Twitter, and I turn on the notifications, and I said, new 4K 60 frames per second trailer, and I went and checked it out right away. I think it goes back. I think Chris had said this earlier, but for me, it's just the smoothness of the gameplay. The fact that you can have it consistently in 60 frames without a virtual drop anywhere. I think that really speaks next gen to me more than anything. And I think about it, well, how much better can the graphics really get? Like, how much better can the grass textures and the faces and the hair really get? Like, it sure can get better. I don't know how much better it can get, but the fact that you can have a totally smooth game is for me, and the cutscenes are going to be, as far as I know, right, 60 frames per second and everything. That to me is super important. And I look back at playing games like FIFA on PlayStation 4, even the Pro, and all the cutscenes are 30 frames, and then the actual gameplay is 60. And then you go to the replay, and the ball's kind of lagging behind, and things don't look as smooth. It just kind of throws the immersion off for me. But to know that you're getting a game that's in 4K 60 is pretty special, and I think it's only going to do wonders for the realism aspect of it and also the immersion.
Absolutely.
So now you've talked about your love for NHL 21, which is, by the way, is an amazing series, and still, even though it's not a PS5 or Xbox Series X game, looks wonderful, amazing on those systems, and obviously hockey is in your family, it's in your blood. When you play NHL 21 or a series like that, because you're so familiar, is it hard to be immersed into that title because you know what the sport is like in real life? Or does it do a good enough job, a solid enough job of mimicking the sport in real life that you can just have fun with it?
It's a great question. Now, one thing you guys will start to learn about me is that the reality is what drives me to make the product in the game as close to real life as possible, which is why I was over the moon from, I think, NHL 15 to either 17 or 18, when they had Chelsea Dagger play whenever the Blackhawks scored a goal. Those type of things for me are, I wouldn't say it's a game breaker to where I'm not going to play if it doesn't have it. It's just, and I just to shout out the show real quick, Sounds of the Show. I've spent on MLB 20. I've spent hours of putting in, and I found on Operation Sports, different Sounds of the Show packs, right. and just to have that and the whoop there it is song play when the Cubs hit a home run. Like, it's things like that really, really are it's really ticked for me, and I think that's one of the things that has been. I don't want to say depressing, but it's just been sad to see the fact that a lot of goal horns in NHL 21 and go back to however many NHL games are not correct, or goal songs are. It's just when you score a goal and you hear the goal horn, you want to be excited. Right. And then all of a sudden there's like a 2-second pause after the goal horn happens, and then some random rock song with like barely any drums or guitar. And you're just kind of like, it kind of kills the immersion. So I am very much a player with sliders. I try to make things as real, like I said, as possible. So, I mean, you can see my, on NHL 21, I play with game speed on like 1 out of 6. Player acceleration is not, nothing is default sliders for me. Acceleration is down. Puck carrier agility is down. Everything is down to make it look more real. And obviously the players aren't skating super fast all the time. And you want to have that parity of, Patrick Kane in his first 3 strides is quicker than a lot of other guys, or Patrick Kane's balance. It shouldn't be a 90. It should be a 95. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole I can go down of fixing player ratings and attributes and statistics and all that. But it's a great game in that the skating just feels really, really good when you're carrying the puck, when you're not. The whole new, I think it's RPM type of skating engine that they put in there. I think it was 2 games ago, which is pretty darn cool. And also, not many people do this, but I actually play from the TV broadcast camera.
Oh,
so you're talking about replicating reality,
right.
And I play, the controls that I play are always up, so it's inverted. So when I'm shooting, I'm going from down to up on the right stick, but my left stick is going left. So it's taken a while for me to adjust to that, but when I kind of started to get things down, it's pretty special. And, obviously it goes along with me. And still to this day, I broadcast when I play, and I think it only helps. And, but yeah, NHL 21 is a pretty solid game. And I hope and I pray that the next game, when it is optimized for next gen consoles, has some more things that's going to bring a little bit closer to reality.
I heard a story. I read a story actually, that when you were younger and you were playing NHL, your brother used to yell at you a lot because you would be doing the play-by-play so loud as you were playing along.
Yeah. That's something that I probably had a few bruises, maybe throwing a tennis ball or something at me, or something to get my attention, because I'm wearing the big headset too. I got a pair of Astro headphones that I wear to only help with the immersion. And I don't know what's going on over there and I'm screaming because I just scored a goal. I don't really care that it's 2:30 in the morning. I'm just worried about winning the game and having fun and sweating it out. So, Tommy, my brother, who had a couple restless and sleepless nights, I think in the long run, we're all going to be a little bit more thankful for.
What was it like having your dad? He was a color commentator for a few years, I believe, right?
Yeah. So my dad.
Did you turn that off because you're like, I'm sick of hearing him. I hear him enough, or?
No, it's funny because a lot of people, and I urge those, especially young people who might do a similar thing and might be able to relate to where they're playing video games and they broadcast. I urge, not to turn off the commentary, talk over it, but then maybe when you're searching for something to say, you can pull something from what one of those broadcasters are saying. And it's no different than when you're watching a baseball game, or you're watching a hockey game, or you're watching a football game. Really go through your head, say what you would say, but then maybe if you're searching for something or need some new lingo or new verbiage, then maybe the guy on the video game says something, oh, that kind of has a ring to it, slaps it that way instead of saying, he hits it that way. So my dad was on the NHL series EA Sports from, I believe it was from 2015 to 19. And then I think 20 is when they introduced the new broadcast package type of thing that they're doing. James Sobalski doing the play-by-play and Ray Farrell. And just to give you guys a little, glimpse into why that happened, is they signed I think it was a 4 or 5 year deal to bring the NBC package to the video game. So 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And with how busy my dad is doing the local TV here for NBC Sports Chicago for the Blackhawk games, and also doing the national games on NBC. I mean, he's probably doing, over 120 games a year. To get a hold of him and get some time in the middle of the season to record new lines or to record new things about players is pretty close to impossible. So what they wanted to do as far as EA Sports, and this is just, secondhand say, I'm not a spokesperson for EA Sports, but they wanted to have broadcasters and announcers that were a little bit closer to their studios in Vancouver, to where they could go in the middle of the season and broadcast new lines, or say, Patrick Kane or, Alex Ovechkin or Sidney Crosby. Logan, I'm sure you're a Penguins fan. So Sidney Crosby has 30 goals this year. That way, Ray Ferraro can go, talk a new line and say, Sidney Crosby, 30 goals to this point in the season, little things like that. And I think that's the transition that they made. But also for me, it was cool to have my dad in the game, and I was able to get some free EA games and give it to my buddies and whatnot. But you talk about realism. I mean, you talk about seeing what you see on the TV in the video game. It was awesome to have the NBC Sports package there, to be able to have those transitions into replays and see the NBC logo light up. So, it was cool for him. And just another little tidbit about it, that was the first game that the NHL series had ever done where they did not pre-script the lines for the announcers. So essentially what they did is my dad and Doc were sitting in a room together, and one of the editors or producers or directors would say, okay, 2 players are in on a 2-on-1, go. And then Doc would, say his spiel, and then the replay would come, and the director would say, okay, Eddie, the guy just hit the post, or he hit the crossbar, go. And then he would ad lib and say what he actually would say, as opposed to being, tied to a certain line that's already pre-read. So that was pretty cool about it. And I think one of the first games ever that actually had live physical broadcasters there, with the green screen behind them, because like the pregame introductions, my dad and Doc were actually there, and then they'd have the green screen of the game going on behind them. I don't know if there was another game that ever did that. I thought I might have heard something. I know there have been games that actually had animated announcers in there, like lookalikes, but so I thought that was pretty cool. So, hey, bummed out he's not doing it anymore, but Ray Ferraro does one heck of a job as the color guy, and James Cybulski certainly brings some good excitement to the game.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head though, with like the broadcast packages and how much that adds to a video game. Like when MLB The Show added the MLB Network package, a few years ago. I mean, that was just awesome. I thought, just being able to have those real graphics, and we talked about this before, and some of the moments they have in if you play some of the old moments where you could relive the moments in history. They have some of the old 70s and 80s graphics. They're a little generic looking, but those type of things just bring a whole other level to the game, and that NBC package on NHL was awesome. Just like with the old, was it 2K, was it ESPN 2K that had the NFL, it was ESPN NFL 2K5, right? Yeah. They were the first, I think they were the first one with the ESPN license at the time. Right. And then Madden ended up getting it later, I believe, right?
EA has owned the ESPN rights since 2005, and the fact that they don't use them is a whole nother grouping of.
I did see. Did I not see something recently that they're doing something with Madden this year with that? Isn't that coming into Madden this year? Something. I thought I saw something about.
I haven't seen any talk of that yet.
Yeah, I thought I saw something, or somewhere I saw something about that. But
well, you know what game was awesome, and it was mind blowing to see it. And that was, if you guys remember, I'm a little bit older than most of you guys, but it was NCAA Basketball 10 from EA. And within that game, they offered dual broadcast choices, both ESPN and CBS, with different sets of announcers. And I mean, it really was. It was ahead of its time.
Well, Logan's been streaming that, I think.
Yeah, right. Logan, exactly. Yeah. You've been streaming that, and I still play that to this day, especially around this time of year. Every year I bust it out. But I mean, I thought that was amazing, and no other game has done something like that, because there is a cost that is associated with doing something like that. And the return, while cool, we love it as fans, there's not necessarily a monetary return, and so that's why we haven't seen it since. But still, amazing, and the NBC package is right up there with that. It's just, I hope game developers, especially in the sports genre, understand what these presentation packages really, how they really immerse the fans at home and what it means. I mean, you take one out, you do one poorly, it's a game changer, and not in a good way. Let's be honest.
Like Logan said, I mean, ESPN is owned by EA, right? They've had the rights to it anyway, and ESPN and ABC, you would think that EA would want to have all those different broadcast packages in their games, especially Madden. Madden makes, probably more money than just about any video game out there. I mean, 2K is getting close, I think. But it's crazy that you don't see more of these, networks trying to actually get their rights in the games. Because I think, especially with these games starting to take off, I mean, let's face it, video games, especially sports games, really saw an uptick last year with COVID because everybody was home. So who knows? Maybe we'll see we'll see some of that, and then next year or two come back.
Well, Nick, go ahead, Chase.
The line of thinking has to change from people in suits up top.
Right.
Like Bob said, everything is all monetary. Everything is money. But if these people set that aside, and like you said, Bob, from us at home having that experience, if one of these guys actually sat down, played the game in their own home, maybe they would see the benefit of it. But some of these people, these higher up guys, they don't do that. They're the ones that just invest, and then if they don't get their return on investment, then that's why you see things go away or disappear.
Absolutely. Well, Nick, you're a big Liverpool fan, right?
I am. Liverpool and Dortmund. Those
okay, there we go. And you've talked about playing FIFA 21 on the PS5, and they have the Premier League broadcast in there. I mean, talk about that. What does that mean to you when you fire up a game on the PS5 and play that?
Yeah, and I know I've probably said the word realism and immersion probably enough times by now, but yeah, it makes a huge difference. I like to think I have three favorite teams. Liverpool, that's my team. I live and die with them. I wake up early on the weekends to watch the games. You ask anybody that knows me, I'm a crazy Liverpool fan. And Dortmund, they're my team in the Bundesliga in Germany as well. And I'm also a pretty darn big fan of Atletico Madrid in La Liga in Spain. So to have three different career modes in three different leagues with three completely different broadcast packages and the scoreboard bug at the top, it makes the world of difference. And it's just like what you see when you're watching the actual games. And for me, that's huge. Now, I know I'm probably in the minority. A lot of people play sports games. They play FIFA for Ultimate Team or play MLB for Diamond Dynasty or NHL for Ultimate Team. Same goes for Madden. But it means a lot to know that you're going to play a game and it's going to be as close to reality as it can, and know that when you're done playing the game and you go and watch the Liverpool game on whatever channel you're watching it on, you're actually seeing the same broadcast package. So for me, it just comes down to making it as real as possible, and that game I think does it as well as any. And yeah, I mean, FIFA is probably the most popular sports game on the market as far as people playing it, and I think it just goes to show the more money that you have, you're able to implement those packages and do face scans and things like that.
And you know what's crazy? Someone just said it, and they talked about the popularity of video games. Chase, I believe it was you, sir. But I just saw a graphic here just last week, I believe, and I believe the total take of video games as a whole was $34 billion for last year. Which, even if you combine movies and music industry together, it didn't come close to the total take-in for video games. So the money is there. They're making the money. I think we're moving back towards better presentation, back towards, we talked about it before, a deeper franchise. We're getting there. There's always going to be an ebb and flow, just like any industry. There's always going to be an ebb and flow. And, I think we're trending backwards for fans, at least of franchise, offline players. Nick, I'm with you. Most of us in here are just like you. We're offline players.
Yeah.
And so, it has a special meaning to us. So, but now
part of that, Bob, is some of the backlash that these companies are getting from social media. That's why you're seeing this revert, a lot of this stuff going back to what it was before, for example, talking about Madden. Well, we all know how Madden was on the PS2 and the PS3, and then we get to the PS4, and we're just bone dry on some of the features that we had from previous gen to now. We're already, 10, 12 years in, 13 years into the PS3, and 8 years into the PS4, and we're still stuck in that tunnel where, nothing changes, and eventually people got tired of it. You've seen it this year with Madden. When Madden dropped, man, everybody was on Madden about franchise mode, presentation, everything, man. So I think that's part of it. Some of these companies are actually starting to take notice in the backlash they're getting from social media.
I was going to say, I don't think presentation is necessarily an offline thing, though. I think presentation is something that, goes both ways. I know that, a lot of, at least when I post TikToks or that kind of stuff, a lot of the things that even online players, like Ultimate Team players, say is they want better presentation. Like if we're talking specifically about Madden, there's no reason that you couldn't have Jim Nantz, Tony Romo on a CBS broadcast or ESPN's broadcast team, and there's no reason that couldn't transcend into the legend or ultimate team mode of any game. Right. It's the same for MLB The Show, right? Like you should be able to use the MLB Network presentation for Diamond Dynasty. It just makes sense. People still, even if you're playing online, there's still a level of immersion that people want out of their video games. So, if you're playing online, still feeling like you're watching an ESPN game or feeling like you're watching a TNT game for 2K, like that matters to a lot of people, regardless of whether or not they play offline or online.
So what I love is, I think being in this industry, developers will tell you, analytics say, people don't want to see presentation. Well, that's wrong. What they don't want to see are minutes and minutes of presentation. And I can point to a game, it's F1 by Codemasters, which is a wonderfully detailed game and a wonderful broadcast package that's included. But what they do that's different than what many companies do, even in this day and age, is they deliver a broadcast presentation that is quick, concise, to the point, and then you're on to the race. But it brings, once again, Nick, level of immersion. You feel like you're watching it on TV, but it doesn't make you sit there for 2-3 minutes at a time. 10 seconds here, 30 seconds here, 20 seconds there, you're behind the wheel and hitting the accelerator. I love that approach, and I'm hoping developers will pick up on that. And every time I do a review or an interview for a game like that, I push that idea. Just so I'm doing my part, guys. All right. I'm pushing that.
Well, MLB The Show kind of already does that now, man. They have hybrid broadcast presentations, right, and they have broadcast. But the problem is with their real-time presentation, they got away from what they were, pre-next gen, PS4. Remember how immersive their real-time presentation was? And some people just, according to Ramon, the statistics say, people are button mashing, and that's why they kind of toned it down, got rid of some of it. So if they can go back and allow people to have those options, I think we'd be in a good place, especially with the show.
I was going to say, Nick was talking earlier about FIFA. I think FIFA does a fantastic job with that.
Agreed.
You have the super in-depth presentation at the beginning when a match is started, just like a match would on match day. But then because the clock is always running on FIFA, their presentation elements have to be really quick, concise, and even situations where they don't take up all of the screen because the game action is just never ending. FIFA kills presentation. They do a great job on it.
2K did a good job with the next gen. They have
agreed.
Yep. Yeah, I forget how many different broadcast packages, but they have different announcers, and they have guest announcers that show up during different games, and you'll see the Christmas graphic on the scoreboard,
Halloween graphic.
Halloween, you see all kinds of crazy stuff, and they really amped it up with the next gen version. I was actually comparing different versions. I was comparing the Xbox version of 2K, or the regular last gen version, I should say, to the PS5 next gen version, and at first you don't really see the differences when you first fire it up, but as you really immerse yourself in it, you see all the little things, which is what I think we're going to end up seeing in MLB. I think you're going to see just the stadiums be more alive, and everything just feel more alive, and that's what 2K did a really good job with, especially with the different presentation packages. You really felt like when you play in a different game, or and you're in a different city, or you're in a different series, you could really feel it because you have different announcers. And even if you go into the WNBA mode in 2K, it's a completely different broadcast package and it's completely different announcers. And they do a really good job. What they just do. They have an overall really good handle on the whole franchise simulation.
As long as I don't have to hear Snoop Dogg every game on NHL, I am happy.
Yeah.
I will say, I think Chase hit the nail on the head for me. It's just as far as having options for people. You want to have the hybrid broadcast, you can do that. You want to have a quick pitch type of broadcast where there's no cutscenes ever, no batter walk-ups, fine. For me, I don't have a ton of time, but when I do, I would like to have a little bit longer batter walk-ups, and see the guys' routines when they're coming into the box. I mean, those are the things that make me tick, or, more different kind of cutscenes. And, not that I want the game to last 5.5 hours, but it comes down to the immersion. And I think if you can find a balance of, having the more traditional broadcast feel, as opposed to that someone just wants to go in and play really quick, you at least have those options. And I think it's certainly in the right direction, and we'll see hopefully if they can build off of it for 21.
Absolutely. So, Nick, when you first joined, we talked about your doing dual services, both with NBC Sports Chicago, and obviously, for those of you who are familiar, the ECHL, the Indy Fuel. You're the lead broadcaster. I believe you said last year was your first year with them, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So last year was my first year down in Indy, and I was actually doing both the two gigs that I have now, associate producing with NBC Sports Chicago and down in Indy as the color analyst down there this is my second year. Yeah, exactly.
So how could you talk a little bit how you toggle back and forth between? I mean, obviously Chicago, Indy, about 3-4 hours away from each other. I think I can't remember.
Yeah, I think my GPS says about 3 hours and 20 minutes, but I'd like to think that I inherited a bit of a lead foot, so I could probably make it. I could probably make it there in about 2:40. So don't tell my parents that. But,
Yeah.
Everybody does on that stretch of road right there.
Have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah. But it's I think it's a great question, Bob. It certainly keeps me really busy. I've worked out kind of a great schedule with my bosses at NBC Sports Chicago, John Shipman and Kevin Anderson. They're really great people, and they're very understanding. And down in Indy, with my great play-by-play partner, Andrew Smith, who's an Indiana hockey historian. And sometimes we're doing a broadcast together. He'll say something about back in the Indianapolis Checkers when Wayne Gretzky was playing a long time ago, and I have no idea what he's saying, but I just say, "You're right." Yes, you're right. And in my brain, I'm just going, "I have no idea," but he's a smart guy, and I could not have asked for a better first broadcast partner, somebody who is extremely helpful and detailed and always willing. Hey, what do you want to talk about? What do you because obviously my job as the color guy, the analyst, is to fill in the details and explain why things happen. So. Just as far as the daily grind, it's a grind for sure. I do pretty much all of the Blackhawk games now. The thing I've worked out is if a Blackhawk game and an Indy Fuel game land on the same night, I'm gonna go down and do the Indy Fuel game. Broadcasting, that's what I want to do. I want to become and flourish into a better broadcaster, and that's where I foresee myself doing in the future. But yeah, and then just to take you through a typical week, most of the time the Indy Fuel will play on the weekends, usually Friday, Saturday. But with a truncated schedule, they started late. They started in December, but they're only playing with 15 out of 30 teams this year down in the ECHL. So the whole Northern Division is decided not to play. You got a couple teams in the Central Division that elected to sit out this year for financial reasons. So the schedule is a lot more truncated. A lot more games during the week, which certainly makes things tougher. But, I look back to, I think 2 weeks ago, I had a Blackhawk game on Tuesday, which I was working down at NBC, was off Wednesday. Then I had a Blackhawks game Thursday night, and then an Indy Fuel game like Friday afternoon. So what I did is I did the game downtown at NBC Sports Chicago on Thursday. And then right after that, just drove right down to Indy, as opposed to coming back into the suburbs of Chicago and then leaving my house the next day at 8 a.m. or whatnot. So it's I think I've found I wouldn't say a steady schedule, but a way to handle all of the travel and games. And I'm usually working 5-6 days a week. And but as the old adage goes, when you enjoy what you do, it's not work. It's a whole lot of fun, and I'm been very lucky to have both the gigs that I do. And down in Indy, Jim Hallett, the great owner there, the Indy Fuel, gave me my start in broadcasting, and hopefully no looking back. So it's been a lot of fun so far. And when you're doing what you enjoy, the long hours and the crazy travel certainly is absolutely worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk a little bit? Obviously, the pandemic has caused an impactful chaos in many people, in everyone's life. So when we talk about how it applies to sports, it's on a different level. But still, for someone that's a broadcaster, when you walk into an arena that is now empty, what's the difference between the energy? I mean, does it impact you at all, or do you just go about and do your business?
Well, it definitely changes things when you hear the goal horn when a guy scores and no one's there to cheer. it's just very different. But I will say, for I think the first couple games down in Indy, there were no fans. But since the very early part of the season, they have had fans down there, which has been incredible. The numbers in the county of Indianapolis have stayed relatively low, and they've had, I think, 20% capacity. Now, the Indiana Farmers Coliseum, which is where they play, which this week is actually a venue for March Madness,
Right.
which is why the Indy Fuel are on the road for 2 weeks, last week and this week. They are allowed to have 20% capacity. So it's a building that holds about 6,400 people, and they've had about 1,400 to 1,500, and those numbers have started to increase a little bit as time has gone along, which has been great. So it's, you talk about getting back to normal, and are we ever going to be able to get back to normal? Who knows? But just to feel the crowd, and it's not even to hear people cheer when a goal is scored and the goal horn goes off, but it's before the game, when it's that nervous tension, knowing that chaos is about to erupt whenever the first puck is dropped. So it's great down there. They've handled things perfectly. The staff, the arena staff, everybody putting the safety precautions and protocols in place. I think they've certainly done things the right way. But yeah, the first couple games was very, very strange. To a goal would be scored, and Andrew Smith, my play-by-play partner, would go score, and then all of a sudden I'm just kind of standing there waiting for people to cheer, and there's nobody there, and you got to somehow internally imagine people going crazy. So, but like I said, for the most part, there's been fans there, and it's been a really, really breath of fresh air with everything going on in the pandemic. Yeah.
So let's go ahead and switch gears back to video games, because at the beginning of the broadcast, you talked about you're a roster nut. And I mean that as a term of endearment, of course.
Yep.
But now these guys around me, I have no bearing on any of this. So I'm going to step away a little bit, but I kind of want to hear about your take on rosters, what excites you, what some of your routines that you do with the rosters. If you could talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny because I was chilling in Bacon's stream the other day, and I had asked. Now, see, I want to, for the next game, hopefully we can have some sort of roster import. Obviously upset about year-to-year saves, and I've never been a year-to-year save guy, but things change and go, and that's just the evolution of gaming, especially when you're going to a brand new console. But I was talking to him, and I just asked a question about rosters, and he goes, "You, my friend, have a case of rosteritis," and so I've embraced it. I've embraced it ever since, and it's, for me, it's not just on MLB. It's the same goes for NHL, and I think it's for sports that I really know and love, because hockey, that's my first love, without a doubt. You could ask me any player, and I give you what color tape he does on his stick, and what kind of skates he wears, and so in terms of hockey, especially on NHL. They do not allow you to do more than one team control for franchise mode, which is something that, it just, come on, allow me to control all 30 teams like you do in MLB The Show. So what I found myself doing, and I mean, this has been years of this. I don't know if I've ever completed a full season or a full franchise, because a big trade happens between two teams, in the division where you're playing a lot of games against them. And then you can't do it because, in the franchise mode, you're only allowed to control one team. And it's not like you can go into a player movement type of mode and change guys around. So rosteritis and trying to make things look as real as possible, whether it be trades or players' attributes and statistics, those are the things that have, I guess, hindered me of playing a full season pretty much in any game. But it's a passion of mine too, and especially for MLB, and it's getting about that time right now where my the photo library on my phone just starts to fill up with pictures of baseball players now. And I know we got a Cub fan, and I know we've got other Sox fans too, but I am, as unpopular of an opinion as it is, I am a fan of both the Cubs and the White Sox, and you can't tell me differently. I'm sorry, Bob. I know you might have to grab a box of Kleenex. I'm sorry. But hey, look, I think at the end of the day, if you were to cut open my arm, I would bleed the color of the sweater that I'm wearing. I grew up a Cubs fan. And I think working at NBC Sports Chicago, which is the TV home of the White Sox, over the last 2 years, I was kind of force-fed White Sox content, and I just kind of fell in love. And it's It's an unbelievable team that they've been able to develop there on the South Side. I mean, the batting lineup and now the starting rotation in the pen. I mean, you talk about World Series hopefuls without a doubt, and a lot of what we saw in the Cubs back in 15 and 16. So what I do, and I'm a bit of an equipment, I guess, snob as well, where I'm, screenshotting pictures online of what the guys are wearing in preparation. So when I get 21, I'm going to go in and edit all the equipment and make sure that it looks like I see if I go to a game or what I see on TV. So, and then the same goes for like statistics and attributes of players. And I think in MLB 20, Anthony Rizzo had like 74 rated fielding, and it just bugged me. I'm like, this is a guy. I was watching MLB Network the other day, and the experts and professionals were saying he's like the sixth best defensive first baseman in all of baseball. I'm like, we got to get that up. Like, come on, like we got a 85 minimum here, maybe even a 90 if he's quote one of the best. So I do a lot of stat editing and trying to do that. I don't go over the top, and I really try not to touch hitting as well. And I'm not giving Nico Horner 90 power so we can just hit bombs every day. But I'm trying to make things.
That.
I do that.
Does do that.
I went to 100. I'll be honest.
That's funny. So it just, and that's one thing that I love about the show, and the fact that you can actually edit those while in a franchise. I mean, how awesome is that? Like that to me, if I had that in a game like NHL, it would be great, because you see, players that are maybe on the roster that you start with, and then they have breakout seasons in real life, and the guy has like 20 goals in 50 games, and his shooting accuracy is like a 70. You're never going to score with him. Right. So to be able to go in and add those things, I think would be so beneficial. But I think for as much as my love for baseball is there, it's the customizability, and especially with sound to the show, for me, that's also huge, and something that I wish. And just to touch on, NHL, I think it was NHL 11, 12, 13, and 14. You had the ability to upload MP3s to the game to put in custom goal horns and goal songs and entrance music. And I would, and at that time I wasn't technically advanced, so I would just burn CDs and upload it, to the Xbox 360 or whatever. And I love that. So I'm really keen on sound to the show, but for the rosters and stats and equipment, all that stuff is really, really big to me, and something that I certainly spend a lot of time on, getting back to what I've said a million times, the immersion and reality.
Yeah, that's where I think that people don't realize sometimes how spoiled MLB The Show players are in the amount of customization that you have. I mean, there is so much more customization than you have. Like, just talking about NHL, I spent quite a bit of time playing that game myself. And, you're waiting for a roster update, which comes from EA, which sometimes takes 4 or 5 weeks. They might put out like 6 or 7 throughout the whole season. You can't share rosters, there's, just single team control. There is just a limited amount of things you can do, within a franchise, that now granted, they have a great franchise. The Fog of War feature they have is amazing. Right. They have some really, really cool features in their franchise that I think other franchises should look at and should take, because they do have a really good in-depth franchise mode. But the customization is very limited, I think, compared to MLB. I do think 2K has a pretty decent customization, because you can do a lot of different things. They have a lot of weird things with 2K. I know they added the DNA thing of last year, the DNA feature for 2K. That was a big feature, which is kind of cool. But there's a lot of different things you could do within that. But I still think overall the 30-team control, being able to edit pretty much everything and anything with MLB just makes it, heads above the other ones as far as customization.
And a way around it, I will say for me, as far as NHL goes, and this was the first game where I did this, the only way to do more than one team control is if you do a season mode, at least in the NHL series. Now, it's not nearly as in depth. There's no player morale. There's no adjust the prices of the tickets and the concession stands, and you want to make a hot dog $15, but no one's going to buy it. Okay, fine. But like that's cool. I just wish that, they were able to implement more than one team control and franchise. So I would, I'm doing season mode in NHL. And just to get back to what I was saying, as far as trying to actually finish a season, I'm going to, this will be the first time for me for 21 MLB The Show to do 30-team control. So that way, I'll be playing all the games with the Cubs and the White Sox, but that way, if a big trade happens between the Giants and the Phillies, I can actually go in and do that and make it as realistic as possible.
Yeah, I play with 30 team control. I think Chase does too, right? Don't you play?
Yeah, I do.
Control? Yeah, I mean, you can mimic the season, you can mimic the trades, you can keep it as realistic as you want. And a nice thing I like about it too is you could also jump around. Like if you see a pitching matchup that you want to play, you see Clayton Kershaw versus Max Scherzer, you can say, hey, I'm going to play that game. You can jump in and play that game. If you see a cool pitching matchup or a player, in the minor leagues in AA or AAA that you want to play with, you can go play that game with them. So I do like that ability to just kind of be able to jump in and play whatever you want. And it just gives it just I don't know, it's just a good feeling just being able to play, whatever game you want to play on that whole schedule, which I think that, I think Madden has a way to be able to go in, and I know they have it was connected franchise. Now it's back to franchise. And I think they have a way where you could actually go in and create the 30 owners and become the 30 different teams. There's something in there, but there's still a lot of limitations. Madden has a lot of really weird roster issues. And sometimes you'll start a franchise and there'll be free agents missing, and it's just kind of crazy. Madden has a lot of issues with.
They updated that this year. They actually added commissioner tools. It was one of the things that they have added throughout the year with updates. Okay. So you can actually go in and undo trades if it's unrealistic, or undo signings or that kind of stuff. And that's awesome, because honestly, one of the biggest issues I've had with NHL this year, and it's specific to be a pro. I jump into a Be a Pro, and the first Be a Pro I ever loaded into, my first game is against the Pittsburgh Penguins. And because it technically starts in year 2, I have Sidney Crosby and Alexander Ovechkin playing on the Penguins in my Be a Pro. And I'm like, all right, well, I don't want to play this anymore.
I'm always the you fire up a franchise with a season mode. It's always CPU trades off for me. Yeah. I'm not even going to mess with the, Drew Doughty going and playing for the Rangers, or something that would just would never happen. So
no, I'm exactly the same way. The minute I see any type of unrealistic trade happen, I'm immediately turned off. I have to have complete control and do all the moves the right way. And that's the only way. If for me at least, last year, I mean, I'll even go one more on you. I was absolutely nuts last year with because obviously the rule changes and the weird schedules and everything. I played all the games in exhibition mode, and I kept track of all the statistics in the spreadsheet. And it hit. Yeah, well, you're also talking to the guy that'll research an A-baller for 2.5 hours. Perfect too. So, but yeah, it was amazing in how realistic actually the results came, because I'm also a slider guy, and it was cool. I mean, it finished. I didn't necessarily get the last couple games, but of the season done. But I mean, for the most part, it was, I'd say 85-90% accurate in terms of what I was getting out of Eloy, Abreu, and the White Sox players. I mean, it was pretty cool.
I was going to say one of the things I really, really like about 2K, and it's a really, really minute thing, is the fact that when you're playing a My League, every year the rules change. The Board of Governors will actually vote on rule additions or rule changes, and I would love to see that come to MLB The Show. So one of the things that was incredibly frustrating to me last year is, of course, I started my Pirates franchise with Ryan rosters, was so excited, day one launch, jump into it. I made the mistake of turning off DH, and it was before Universal DH came in, and then I was saddled 5 years into an NL playthrough on a franchise without a DH. And year 5 of a franchise where I'm still having to, bat my pitchers 4 times a game, not enjoyable experience.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah,
and I'm going to throw this out, and I'm going to be the bigger man. I understand your love, Nick, of the White Sox in that lineup. It is a fun lineup, and it stings to say, but I would not be opposed to an all-Chicago World Series. I mean, I'd be okay with that. Yeah.
I just think of it, and I know, because I have a lot of friends who are diehard Sox fans, diehard Cubs fans. Like I said, I think if I had to pick, I could only watch one team, I think it'd have to be the Cubs. I grew up. My dad was a Cub fan. I live on the north side, and I've been to a bunch of games at Wrigley, and it's always a blast whenever you go there. But I just think the excitement from the team on the South Side is something that you, at least, whether you're a diehard Cub fan or not, I think you at least have to pay attention to. And like I said, it just so happens I work at the station where they're around all the time, which, certainly whether you like it or not, you're force fed it. And I just so happened they really grew on me. And, I think as somebody who, I don't think you have to hate one team or the other. I just look at it and go, I want to see both Chicago teams do well. And if they meet in the World Series, oh my God. I mean, so would I want to see the Cubs win? Sure. But, to see the White Sox do it again with that lineup, I mean, how can you not be excited for them as well?
Yeah.
Don't worry, Bob. There will be some Cubs in the World Series. They just won't be in a Cubs uniform.
Oh, they're all over. They're in New York. They're on the South Side. Yeah, they're out. Yeah.
Thanks for Eloy.
Oh, that's okay.
Thank you.
We don't have a need for him. Yeah, we're fine. So
and Logan, I see you're a Pirates fan. And so I realized I've been watching a couple of the podcasts lately and just admiring the great work that you guys do. I actually found a baseball bat. Okay, it's a Louisville Slugger. Okay, and I don't know if you'll be able to read that name or not. I don't know if it's
Jack Wilson.
Jack Wilson. Wow. Okay.
Jack Wilson bat signed to my dad I think this was when he was coaching in Pittsburgh. It would have been probably 2004 to 2006, somewhere around there. But we use this as a protector bat around the house. You just never know. And I never even bothered to look and see the name. And all of a sudden I go, oh, Jack Wilson. Yeah, I guess he was a pretty good shortstop. So I had to bring it on and show you. So we do have some Pirates memorabilia around the house. So
Jack Wilson and Jason Bay, the two names that pop out for 2000s Pirates.
Yeah.
Great. So obviously, Nick, your job is a cold-based job. You're doing Blackhawks games as associate producer. You're doing Indy Fuel. What's the summer look like for you? Is it pretty much a full-time job now, or is there time off during the summer that just lets you be you?
Yeah. There's definitely time off in the summer when hockey's not going on, and I think over the years, especially when I was playing, whether it be at Division I, Colorado College, playing there for 2 years, or growing up, the summers were always something that you look forward to. In my playing days, you look forward to it because it's a break from hockey, and then you get to do training a lot in the summer. And obviously, I'm not playing anymore, so I have those. I'm a pretty avid golfer. I love golfing, so I do a lot of that in the summer. But you talk about silver linings in the pandemic, and obviously, heartfelt to everybody who experienced loss and everything during the pandemic, and loss of employment and people losing their lives. But I was actually pretty fortunate to add a job during the pandemic. So with the work that I do as associate producer at NBC Sports Chicago, my main specialty is I work with a telestration system called Libero. And basically that's a goal happens or a play happens that's worth breaking down and explaining why. I go into the system, I'll basically load like the live clip into the system, and then I'll be able to add different graphics and trackers and nameplates and arrows to illustrate what's going on. And then that 30, 40, 50-second clip will be sent to the in-studio analysts. That's, the host is Pat Boyle, and it's usually Steve Conroy or Jamal Mayer. Sometimes Patrick Sharp is in there. And then they break it down and they talk about kind of what I drew up. So that's my main job at NBC. So getting back to the root of what I was saying is probably, I think it was when the NHL had their return and they were in the bubble. About a couple weeks into that, I got a call from somebody at NBC Sports Chicago, and they said, hey, there's this virtual advertising software company looking for somebody to run virtual advertising. And I'm like, okay, sure. Why not? So it was a company called Chiron Hego based in Germany. And they reached out to me and they said, hey, would you be interested in doing live virtual graphics operating for Major League Soccer? So as the pandemic was going on, MLS was playing, and I was actually lucky enough and fortunate enough to work pretty much all Chicago Fire home games, and they're playing down at Soldier Field, the home of the Chicago Bears. And so basically, essentially what I was doing there was when you'd watch the games on TV, instead of the team having to pay an exorbitant amount of money to buy tarps and then put logos and ads on top of those tarps and then put the tarps, in the massive Soldier Field, I went in and I calibrated the pitch, calibrated everything around there and the lines on the field, and then virtually placed advertisements in the stands to look like tarps. Also on either sides of the goals, they look like carpet logos and advertisements, like an ad board. Sometimes you'll see physical ones that are flat on the ground, but at an angle, they look like they're standing up. So that's what I was doing, lucky enough to do actually during the pandemic, and kind of a silver lining thing. And the reason why I got the gig is because a lot of the operators for that company were not traveling because of COVID-19. So that's also something that kept me really busy, and will be doing so again likely this summer with other things that are going on. Hopefully I'll be back working the MLS and any other gigs that they have, any other sporting events and tournaments that they have that they'll have me do. So that's also another company that I'm very fortunate to at least be an independent contractor, so to speak, for. So I think there's going to be a good amount of that this summer, and like I said, golf and watching the Cubbies and the White Sox hopefully tear it up this year. So really looking forward to it.
Did you get to play any of the PGA Tour, the 2K PGA Tour on the Xbox or PS5 or PS4?
I have not for the 2K, the 21 version yet. I have not. It's something that I definitely have on my games to get list on my notes on my phone, which continuously just gets longer. I'm doing more scrolling as the days go on. I'm always adding new games. But yeah, I played the last one that they had, and I was a big fan of the Tiger Woods PGA Tour games growing up. And my brother Tommy, the one who always got mad at me for broadcasting, he was an avid player on that. I think in the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3 days, and I just watched him play. And obviously, I mean, golf and hockey, it's a given that you might not be able to. Might not be able to hit it straight. You could probably usually hit it pretty far if you're a hockey player, because it's like a slap shot. But I certainly enjoy golf, and I look forward to hopefully getting the new golf game, the 21, in my hands.
Yeah, they did a great job. The studio that ended up taking over, or 2K ended up working with, it was the golf club, and it's a phenomenal game. It's actually, I think, probably my sports game of 2020. It was so good. It's great from top to bottom. It was fantastic. And
they have like a true sim mode, right? Where it's like any little movement to the left of the left stick, and it's just going OB, right?
Yeah.
Like that's to make it difficult, a challenge.
Yeah, that game will punish you.
If you want to see how much it punishes you, watch some of Logan's streams, and you'll see.
That game's hard, man. It's really hard.
They do a great job with the clubs and the courses. There's all shareable. You could create your own course and you could share it. It's really, really in depth. And they just signed Tiger Woods, I believe, to join that series. So that's gonna push that to the next.
Yep. 2K just bought that development team out and will take over. I think they're going to absorb them and added Tiger Woods to the series. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that in 2022's version. Not that I can officially announce that, so don't go running to anywhere with that information. But it'll be interesting. So Nick, we were talking about your job a little bit, and obviously both jobs present different sets of challenges. But what for you is more enjoyable, if you could say, behind the camera or in front of the camera? What do you like best?
I really enjoy performing.
Okay.
Being entertaining, making people laugh. But I think more so in the job that I do as a broadcaster, it's to teach, to explain, to make hard simple. Because the game of hockey, there's a lot going on. And I try, at least, down in Indy, and my aspirations are to become a color analyst and a color commentator in the NHL one day. And, so to speak, follow in the footsteps, but have my own spin and work to get there. And I think that's something that I'm doing right now. Look, I mean, it's no different than a player or a baseball player, where you might not be the most sought after and the best, player ever, but you're grinding it out in AA. And then you get your chance in AAA, and then you get your shot at the MLB if everything goes right. So for me, it's just being lucky enough to have a broadcasting job in the ECHL is great, because I'm able to work on things and figure out what works, what doesn't work, develop a couple catchphrases, and know that, there's not millions of people watching. So it's okay to make a mistake, and you go back and you learn from it, and you get critique, and you build connections in your network that way. So I think if I had to pick, a favorite one, it would probably be broadcasting down in the Indy field, because that's what I'm extremely passionate about. But that doesn't go without saying of how lucky and fortunate I've been to work at NBC Sports Chicago. It's an incredible job. It's a torn decision if I had to pick, but and I think working with guys that have played the game for a long time, like a Jamal Mayers, or working with a guy like Patrick Sharp or Adam Burrish in the past, and Jamal Mayers and Steve Conroy and Pat Boyle there as well. You learn so much, and there's always learning going on. Now, things have been a little bit different with everything going on in the pandemic this year, but looking back last year, I would sit in the green room and, while the periods were going on with those guys, because they do the intermissions, and I would just, we would just shoot the breeze and listen to the way that they broke down the game, which only helps me. And I am without question a student of the game, and I'm always watching different announcers to see how they do things. But I think at the end of the day, the work that I've done behind the camera is only going to help me in front of the camera, because I know what goes on. I have an appreciation for the editors and the directors and the producers. And I'm, doing the job that I was doing for the MLS, the live virtual graphics advertising operating. I was in a production truck, and I know how crazy it is. And that, you want to get a replay as an analyst, but you realize that, you can't get it right then. And some guys, they don't get that things take time, or they don't understand exactly how things work in the truck. So I think, if eventually I get to where I want to get to, I think those behind the camera will have a little bit of a greater respect for him, because I was not only in that position, I know what goes on, but the things I've learned in the studio, working with people behind the scenes, certainly has helped me in a big way when you're live on the air.
And that's a hell of a group too. I mean, Hawks fans are spoiled with the level of knowledge that's on their analysis teams and everything. I mean, Sharpie and Pat Boyle is just awesome. I mean, that's a great group.
And it's entertainment too. I think that you watch a lot of broadcasters, and some it's like watching paint dry. And I mean, it's no different than in any other line of work. You got people that do with a little bit of a spunk, and they have a personality, and they're entertaining. And that's why, at least perhaps the biggest thing I've learned from my dad is that you're there to teach, and you're there to explain why things happen, but to have a personality and to be relatable, and to, when you make a mistake, own up to it. It goes a long way, and it's entertaining to watch, and it's okay to make people laugh. It's okay to make people smile and laugh while you're teaching them a thing or two. So that's why for me, at the end of every broadcast, or at least at the start, by the end, I want to have done one of three things. I want to have taught my audience something about the game of hockey, or I would have wanted to make them smile and laugh and be entertained. And if I can do both, certainly a very successful broadcast.
Now, you just spoke of your father. Does your dad ever call and critique your work? Because I'll be honest, Chris and I watched a lot of clips of you, and without sounding fanboyish over this, right? You sound amazing. I mean, for the level and only being in your second year, you really do, and it's a testament to you. So, does that just come natural, or was Eddie a big influence on you in regards to that?
Oh, I really appreciate that, and I know it's genuine, and it means a lot to have people that enjoy your work. I've always been somebody who enjoys entertaining. I think if I wasn't in this line, I'd want to be an actor. I enjoy, and actually, so just to give you a little background, when I was going to Colorado College, I was only there for 2 years, freshman and sophomore year. I made the decision to leave after my sophomore year. Things just kind of weren't going in the right direction hockey-wise, wasn't really getting an opportunity. And so I decided to leave. But I made the decision to leave, and by far the biggest risk or decision I ever had to make in my life. But I knew that when I decided to leave college after my second year, I was going into an opportunity where I was going to do something that I really enjoyed doing. And it was a calculated and rationalized decision. But while I was at school at Colorado College, it's a small liberal arts school, and they don't even have a communications degree there. So what I was doing is I was in the process of creating an independently designed major, which is something that it was pretty cool that they had. And I was combining English and journalism and film and media and theater. And those, if I could combine all of those, it'd be some sort of a communications or media type degree, which was something that really was something that I wanted to do with the rest of my life eventually when playing came to an end. So I think for me, being comfortable talking about myself or talking about what I know in front of people is just something that's innate. Certainly helpful. What we started talking about at the top of the show is broadcasting while I'm playing video games. It's just always been an innate practice for me. And so being able to be comfortable on camera, talking to other people is certainly something that I just think kind of came natural to me and maybe something that I inherited. But I certainly enjoy doing it. And there's nothing like the thrill of being on air, knowing that anything that leaves your mouth is off to the moon, and you're never getting it back. So you better make sure that what you say is what you mean. So it's a pretty amazing couple gigs that I have, and I'm very, very blessed and fortunate to be able to do what I do.
Well, we don't want to keep you on here forever. We appreciate it all the time, but I did have one question, because I'm sure a lot of people, or a lot of listeners are curious at some point, your first time on TV, doing a broadcast, 1 of 10, where were you at nerve-wise scale?
I think it was probably a 12.
12?
I think of nerves in a different way. It's because you care, right, and because you want to do well, because you're so passionate about what you do. I think you look at a lot of professional athletes, and I've been very fortunate to meet a lot, and call a lot, good friends of mine, is that they knew that they were ready to retire when they did not start sweating before the game started. When they stopped getting nervous, then they realized, maybe my heart's not in it anymore. So, I know for sure that I'm definitely a lot more comfortable now than I was 2 months ago, let alone last year. And that just comes with repetitions. And anybody in the broadcast or media industry or podcasts or anything, the more repetitions you do, the more podcasts you do, the more broadcasts you do, you're going to get more comfortable saying what you say, and not being so conscientious of the things you say, but how you say them. So for me, I think the nerves will always be there, but that just goes to show that I'm really, really passionate about what I do, that I care about doing a great job and trying to not only do well for me, but to do well for my partner. And you don't want to be someone dragging your feet. So it's very much a team-oriented atmosphere, and something that, I'm nervous. And I don't think it's any different than when I get nervous going into for the first pitch of a game in the middle of the season on MLB The Show 21, like I will. I can feel my palms starting to sweat already. And actually, I was lucky enough to be a part of the tech test also, right, just to end on this and maybe give a couple thoughts. I don't know if it's because I racked up a lot of hours of playing on MLB 20. I'm not really sure. But I signed up and was lucky enough to actually be chosen and did it. And it's a bit different, at least for me. You hear about check swings, which is something that is interesting. And I found this the other day, and I thought you guys might get a kick out of this. So I guess check swings are a little bit different. I think they've completely removed it from how it's tied to discipline. I don't think they've removed the discipline stat in the game. But anyway, so I was doing some reading, and it was from an article that SDS put out, and they said, they're just talking about check swinging and discipline. And it says discipline rating is still a factor for increasing walks and directly influences swing decisions during fast forward and simming. Okay, that's okay. And then it says high discipline makes check swings easier to execute and affects the rate of automatically dodging near miss hit pitches. So it seems like it still affects check swinging, discipline does, but it doesn't. But at least the one thing that I've noticed while playing the hours of practice mode that I played, and actually, because the game is still, I don't know if I should be saying this, they're probably going to brick. They're probably going to brick my PlayStation, but I still have the tech test,
right?
And I've just been playing practice mode like for hours and just practicing hitting and hitting and base running on Legend, which is where I look for a challenge. And the two things I've noticed is check swing is a lot more difficult. It's funny because I feel like I have more control check swinging with a guy like Javi Baez as I do with Anthony Rizzo, which is very strange because Baez has like a 40% meatball swing stat or something like that. And just for those that might have played it and to get ready for 21, the ball is a lot smaller in 21, at least batting, and more authentic looking. Because I re-downloaded 21 onto my PlayStation 5 and I went back just to play a game. The ball looked like a softball. And then I go back to the tech test for 21 and it's way smaller and more authentic. So that's at least another thing to look forward to. And I know I'm just rambling. I could be with you guys for another I could be with you guys for another 10 hours and I love this stuff, but I'm really excited. I could not be more thankful for you guys to have me on here. It's great to be with people that see things similar to what I do. And let's just say right now that I'm kind of bummed out that I got the standard edition because I would like the 4 days early access, to say the least. But I'm certainly sweating it out. And I got a little timer here on my computer that as of right now says 29 or 28 days left until 21 releases. So I'm pumped and I'm excited to follow everything that you guys are doing. Couldn't be more appreciative for you guys having me on.
Oh, awesome. We are thrilled that you came on today. This has been great. This has been so much fun because we got to delve into so many different topics and so many games. And, we'd love to have you back on board as we get closer to the 21 coming out, because we have a couple things planned for the release of MLB The Show 21 as the game gets closer to release. So we'll talk offline and again sometime in the near future, and we'll set something up to get you back on with us.
Absolutely. If I can make it work with my schedule, I'll happily and gladly be back on. But thanks everybody, Logan. And by the way, Logan, you're nutsy poo. I love that. I don't know the story behind it. I just think I don't know if I've ever said the word nuts and poo in the same sentence, but it just rings off. It just flows off the tongue perfectly. So Chase, Logan, Scott, Chris, Bob, thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick.
Appreciate it.
It was great having you on.
Definitely.
So, and with that, we want to thank everybody. We want to thank all of our listeners. Of course, the show will be available on Twitch. You can watch it even after the broadcast has ended. It'll be available on YouTube, and the podcast will be available, and that will be starting tomorrow. But thank you for everyone who takes the time to be part of our little family, our little community here. It means the world. This is why we do it, and we just appreciate all who stop by. And with that, everybody else, have a wonderful evening.